Morning Express. On this side of the show, we shall be taking a look at what's happening in the United States, why you need to care about it. But to get you updated on those details, let's take a look at this soundbite from Joe Biden, the president-elect. Now, United States President-elect Joe Biden has made his acceptance speech and vowed to unite the people of the United States. He addressed thousands of his supporters in his Delaware state. Take a look.
People of this nation have spoken. They've delivered us a clear victory, a convincing victory, a victory for we the people. We've won with the most votes ever cast on a presidential ticket in the history of the nation, 74 million. What I must admit has surprised me. Tonight, we're seeing all over this nation, all cities and all parts of the country, indeed across the world, an outpouring of joy, of hope, renewed faith in tomorrow, bring a better day. And I'm humbled by the trust and confidence you placed in me. I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify. Who doesn't see red states and blue states, only sees the United States. And work with all my heart, with the confidence of the whole people, to win the confidence of all of you. And for that is what America, I believe, is about.
Now, to be a part of this conversation, answer this question. Do you think Donald Trump should concede defeat? Do you think Donald Trump should concede defeat? Matrix Ingado Michael Z. Michael G. Tonga, the hashtag to use this morning is KTN Morning Express. Do you think Donald Trump should concede defeat? He has not taken that pronouncement lightly by various media houses. His supporters are also out up in arms on social media and in the streets, saying it's not over until it's over. Now, continuing on with this conversation is Honorable Joe Mutambo, who's the former Member of Parliament for Mwingi Central, as well as Honorable Arthur Odera, who's the ex-Teso North MP, as well as Nakia White, who is on the panel as an international relations expert, to tell us what this actually means for the world and, of course, Kenya and African states. Now, Nakia, I'm going to start with you. What does this mean for you personally?
I would say personally, Kamala Harris, just deep and overwhelming pride. And I'd like to echo what the president-elect said, is a renewed faith in our electorate, in our democracy. It's just really exciting. I am personally very thrilled, and I know many of my friends who I've spoken to over the last couple of days are incredibly thrilled, not only about the prospect of saving our democracy, literally, but also the first woman of color in the highest office of the land. I can't tell you the level and the amount of pride that bestows on me.
Pose this one over to Honorable Mutambo. As an African leader, what is a Donald Trump failure and a Biden win mean? What does that mean to you?
First and foremost, allow me to congratulate Biden for winning. Second, I want to fault Trump for not conceding defeat. And I want to refer him to 2016 election. And he keeps on saying that it is not the media to announce. He went the same process. I was following 2016 election. And the moment he surpassed the 270 mark, he was pronounced as a winner, and he was out there giving acceptance speech. So he should not double speak on this. It is too wrong for a leader of such a country, which all the world looks upon, to cling into the office and say, I will not. And I'm not worried about him actually, because I know there are laws in America. It is 3 months towards the swearing in of Biden. And I'm sure the moment Biden is sworn in, Trump will not stay in that office. He has his democratic right to go to court and challenge the outcome, but not to say, I'm not going to concede, I'm not going to accept, because it is the will of the people, and he should respect the people. The same people who voted him in are the same people who have decided to vote him out, and they are voting him out because they have seen the man cannot take the mantle, he cannot lead them. And even in this other side of the world, we are feeling it. The way he behaves, we look at America as our big brother, and they set it to us. And if they set a bad example, our leaders will also follow. So I am not happy by the way he is doing.
Okay, Honorable Mutambo, so we'll get into that relation with African nations in a while, but I'd like Honorable Odera to tell us his take on what this means to him as an African leader.
Clearly, I'm excited about the Biden win.
Okay.
First of all, because Biden supported Obama, who was, apart from his Kenyan relations, in terms of race relations worldwide, Biden supported Obama and was his vice president for 8 years, and he did a great job at that, especially handling the economic depression that they were facing at that time, and also race relations, which they had to deal with to quite a large extent. And I'm thinking, even if you listen to his maiden speech as president-elect, he told the black community in the US that, you know what, you've had my back, I'm going to have yours. That is a promise, if you ask me. And I think Biden is going to be good for race relations. He's going to be good for political morality. He is certainly going to handle Africa with a lot more respect than Trump did. And I think that overall, I mean, imagine a situation where you're watching TV with your children and Trump is talking. He debases humanity. He teaches people bad manners, if you ask me. And I think that Biden is a decent guy.
Right.
He is a considerate guy. He is a man with a fine track record of handling world issues. He's going to be good for the world. And when you consider other broader issues like climate change, Biden is not a denier. He even when he outlined, and similarly his vice president-elect said the same things, the 4 things that they seem to have top of the agenda: COVID, climate change, race relations, and the economy. You can imagine that race relations does not just affect the US. It affects relationships with the world, and they are probably going to lead the world again in terms of tackling climate change and tackling race relations. So he can only be good for the world and good for Africa.
Yeah. Now, who better to tell us more about race relations than Ms. White? Could you tell us what this means for people of color and why they came out in droves just to vote, basically vote Trump out? What does this mean, and what difference can this administration bring to the table?
Well, I want to echo the sentiments of
Honorable Odera?
My panelists. Yes.
Yes.
And so again, there was incredible significance in the fact that both the president-elect and Biden and Harris acknowledged African Americans being responsible for their win. But let's deal with some facts. It has only been about 35 years since the 15th Amendment was ratified and African Americans got the right to vote. And even that faced challenges, often violent ones. So the fact that African Americans came out in droves, even though the Republicans were trying to suppress the vote, is quite significant. And I think also historic was the fact that Biden and Harris, VP, Madam VP Harris, said that, listen, we acknowledge, the fact that Black Americans and people of color, POC, came out to vote, and that we have a responsibility to deal with the justice system on your behalf, to deal with the economics on your behalf. And I think that that is significant because, and let me add this, the Democratic Party for a very, very long time just leveraged the Black vote, but never delivered for the Black community as a whole. And now we're seeing a real call on that, a callback on that, and a circle around of that. And Black leaders around the world, organizations around the world and in the United States, coming together and saying, hey, we have an agenda, and here's what we want to see done in the next 4 years. Incredibly significant. And again, the fact that just 35 years ago, Blacks were granted the full rights through ratification to vote. It is incredibly significant.
Yeah, and they did marshal the numbers. What was the failure of the previous Clinton campaign, and why did the numbers work this time for the Democrats?
Well, I think the numbers work because you look at Georgia with someone like Stacey Abrams, who had an organization called, or still has an organization called Fair Fight. She has, in fact, 2 organizations. Incredibly significant in delivering a place like Georgia. You had Pennsylvania, and Philly was one of those counties that really came through, or Philadelphia was one of those counties that really came through. And so the numbers were incredibly different. And I think because of the rhetoric of the sitting yet outgoing president, I'm happy to say that, of the outgoing president, it was just a lot of rhetoric. We saw a lot of violence against people of color throughout his 4 years, and much of which he in many ways supported. And so it was really a vote against his racist actions in the highest office of the land that we saw, and a repudiation of that, that was incredibly important. And it was very different than what we saw with Clinton and Barack Obama in the time that they were running for election.
Now,
So
Ms. White, before you continue,
his rhetoric.
Just to clarify for those who have not been following U.S. politics or even Donald Trump on Twitter, what are these racist actions that you think the people were quite offended by?
Oh, where should I start? I mean, when, I think it was one of the Carolinas where there was a Black Lives protest. And Trump said that there were good people on both sides, even though there were neo-Nazis on one side coming out specifically to attack people of color who were peacefully protesting. The fact that during George Floyd's, after George Floyd's death, when there were a number of different protests, the outgoing president cleared the streets around Washington, D.C., just so that he can hold up a Bible backwards. I mean, there's so many things I can go on and on and on about what Trump has done and has not done. And even saying during one of, he did not or refused to say, listen, white supremacy is wrong. He refused to say that. And in fact, he told the Proud Boys is a group, you know, a subset of the neo-Nazis. He told them to stand down and stand back. What American president does that in modern history? I mean, so, yeah.
Very good question there. Now, Honorable Mutambo, you did mention, you talked about, you were against the fact that he's not conceding because these same rules applied when he was pronounced by the media houses as the apparent winner in the last election. So it seems like he's almost reading from an African dictator's playbook when he comes out and starts saying that he will not concede defeat, he will fight it. What do you think should be done moving forward, in your opinion, Honorable Mutambo?
I will not equate Trump with African leaders. I think he's more or worse than African leaders, because African leaders, they don't behave the way Trump is behaving. And I'm saying this by looking at the way he's been treating his fellow Americans. Because whether you are black, you are colored, or you are whatever race, you are an American, and you have all the rights given to you by the Constitution. And he went against all those rights and abused those rights, and he misbehaved in manner of treating people unjust. This is where I'm getting a problem with. So I don't want to equate Trump with our leaders here.
That's true.
Our leaders will disagree, and I have not seen a leader who has been voted out and said that I am not going to concede. They always come up with either extending their term, and they are re-elected, and the people are arguing in between, why did you change the Constitution for you to be re-elected? But the Constitution has already been changed, and has already been elected. So there's a difference between Trump and African leaders. Arab leaders are the ones who lose election, and they go to the street and demonstrate and say that I have not lost, I have not lost. Those are kind of leaders we have in Africa. So we hardly see a leader who loses. And I will give a good example. Our former president Moi, he lost election to Kibaki. He lost it he gave power to Kibaki after his party lost, and he never said, we are not going to concede. We are going to put our man there in force. So this is the kind of difference between the leaders in Africa and Trump. So I don't want to call him
To draw that comparison,
but to me, I think Trump is not worth being a leader, because a leader is the one who accepts the will of the people, and the way you treat people is what comes back out you. You treat people with the dignity, with the respect, they will respect you, and they will fight for you. Actually, there is no leader who fights for himself. It is people who fight for their leaders. It is not the leaders who go out to demonstrate. It is the people who go out to demonstrate. It is the supporters who say we have not lost, our leaders not lost. It is the leaders it is the people who go to court. But here it is Trump just lamping, saying it is me, I've won, it is me, I'm going to court, I'm doing this. It has never happened like that in Africa. Absolutely. In Africa, it is the supporters of the presidents or of the people who are vying who support them. If you ask Odera, he will tell you that he supported Raila and he will support Raila, but Raila will be quiet somewhere in the house sleeping. People will go out from Kibera or in Kisumu demonstrating while Raila is watching them in the TV. He will only come out to give a statement. But for Trump to go out there and behave the way he's behaving, to me, I think it's not worth to be.
Okay. Honorable Odera, do you think the Republicans, even the supporters, not just Trump, have a case on their side in terms of saying this is not fair, the count is not finished, we have to wait till the Electoral College make the pronouncement? Do you think they have a case?
No, they do not. I think that Trump is just being Trump, and the Republican Party is captive to Trump. However, you will notice that in the last 2 days, there have been Republicans, known Republicans, who are beginning to peel off from the Trump argument, including his close friend Lindsey Graham of Carolina. And that's going to happen more and more as we go towards the end of this process. You know, Trump is the real homo horribilis, the human being that you dread to think of, you dread to relate with, you dread to imagine that he would be your leader.
Very harsh.
However, I have a harsh, but I am sure a lot of people will agree with me. But let me just say, there's, for me, as a black man, and I think a lot of the black race might see this, Trump is a blessing in disguise in terms of race relations. In this way, Trump has exposed the soft underbelly of the white purists of the US. And we can only get better from that point on. You know, there's been a lot of hypocrisy and pretense and posturing regarding race relations in the US for many, many years. From the lynching of black people, from the rape and the defilement of black women who were slaves in the US, to the systemic racism, to the killing of George Floyd, to the killing of Breonna Taylor, to the shooting of Jacob Blake without consequences to the people who did it. We are now facing a situation where we know that there is a lot of people who believe in white supremacy in the US. They will not pretend anymore, because I suppose going forward from the election of Joe Biden and the swearing in of Joe Biden, we are going to have a situation where Biden will face a lot of opposition from the white supremacists simply because he believes in integration of the races in the world, simply because he believes in racial justice, simply because the black community and a lot of the brown community has supported him, and he is committed to racial justice. But the question is, if there wasn't COVID starting in early 2020, would Trump have lost? I think not. Well, I think not. He probably would have won. So it is this COVID and the effect on the economy that has helped us deliver a Biden victory. But the fact that he might have won if there wasn't COVID tells you a lot about where the U.S. sits.
Because it's not that the Republicans or his supporters did not vote. Some of those areas, the vote was very close. The margins were very slim. He still has a significant support, and that says a lot about. I
agree with you. And the joy of it this time, as opposed to 2016, not only has Biden won the electoral votes, the electors' votes, he has also won the popular vote. So really there isn't an argument. And it can only get better from this point on. The white supremacists have been exposed. The people who have been acting and pretending and posturing have been exposed for what they truly are. And I don't fear for the world anymore like I used to when Trump was president.
Okay.
He's going to have to leave office one way or the other. I listened to a retired general over the weekend saying, you know what, if Trump doesn't concede, it is okay. But if he refuses to leave the White House, the military will deliver him to his last known address, which is Trump Tower in New York. And I'm very glad that he cannot do more than talk.
Yeah. Now, Ms. White, bring it closer to home. What difference would this make to Kenya's relation to the United States and other African nations as we shift from a Trump administration to a Biden administration? What difference would it make? And we have seen the ambassador to the U.S. ambassador to Kenya going out on Twitter and saying, supporting actually Donald Trump and saying that he does not have a new boss, it's not over yet. So when you have this sort of situation playing out on Twitter, what is it about the policies towards African nations that we expect to change?
Well, I think what's important is that the Biden-Harris administration take care of home first.
Okay.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done within the Black and Brown communities to ensure racial justice, economic justice, education, and health justice. And I think that the world, particularly African countries, will be looking at that and saying, hey, if you can't take care of your own Black and Brown people, how can you now come and try to say what or suggest what we should do? So I think taking care of home and showing African countries that that Black and Brown people in their own country are important, I think is the first step. And I think longer term, what might happen, remember President Trump, one of his first executive orders was to limit the amount of green cards, particularly from places like Kenya and throughout East Africa, limiting the amount of Muslims that came in. And we saw Nigeria on that list and other places on that list. So I think a lot of that will be eased. And then the transfer of money, I mean, just the transfer of commerce. During Trump's time in office, he really regulated that a great deal. So I think that we'll see an ease of the trade of money in and out of the country, which is important for just simply doing business, right? So those are the things that I think will happen and will be really important in the near future.
Okay, and what about immigration? His policies have been quite strict, and you know, a lot of Hispanics have voted him out based on some of these things, the build a wall rhetoric, and Mexico is going to pay for it. So what do you think is going to change, and what proactive things would a Biden administration do to, you know, smoothen immigration or at least not be as harsh?
Well, let's talk about the Latino vote, because it's a really interesting demographic. Trump won Florida predominantly because of Cuban Americans. And Cuban Americans really voted for communism, right? And they really believe that the Biden-Harris tenure would be one of a communist tenure. And also, Cuban Americans tend to lean red. They tend to be Republican. So that's one part. And then you look at Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Mexicans, which tend to lean left. And that can be, if the Democratic Party doesn't work really hard on gathering that vote. AOC talked about this a lot, but if they don't work hard on galvanizing that vote, they can also lose that vote as well, and they can start to lean a little bit right more. But I think, yes, that Mexicans in Texas, even though he still won Texas, but they did vote against you know, the immigration and the building of the wall and all of the rhetoric of Trump saying that the Mexicans are coming in, they're very bad people, they're gonna come in and steal and kill. And in fact, right before the election, he dedicated a day to people who were killed by illegal immigrants. It's insane. It's just absolutely insane. So yeah, I think that many Latin Americans or many people from the Latin continent who are American voted in favor of the Biden-Harris ticket because of the rhetoric of the president over the last 3.5 years.
Right. Now, I'd like to, because you're running out of time, I'd like your brief closing remarks. I'll start you, Ms. White.
Well, you mentioned something about the U.S. ambassador and what he said
on Twitter,
on Twitter, right? And it's really unfortunate because the job of an ambassador is to promote democracy in a country. And part of that democracy is voting. And so his statement sort of kind of undermines his duty in this country, right? And so it was really strange to me, really odd. And I know that he's an appointee of Trump, but also there is a duty and people are looking at him as a leader. So it's really unfortunate to even question the democratic process in the United States, even though you were supposed to be promoting it in another country.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, I have to say again how deeply happy I am that there is a woman of color in the highest office in the land, Madam Vice President. Out of 244 years of the United States, 47 presidents, all male, all white. We now see a little color in that picture, and so I'm incredibly proud about that and very.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Mutambo. Your closing remarks.
Well, yes, I think I'm persuaded by the fact that in America, they tend to believe in what they own.
Yeah.
And most of Americans is like they are Republicans. And this will go down by history. If you look at how many presidents America has produced, out of the 46, only 9 are Democrats up to today. That tells you that most of the Americans believe that Republican is their party and they own it. And I'm sure that is how Trump won in the first place, because Americans believed in their own party, which is Republican, as opposed to Democrats. They try to associate Democrats with the blacks and such, the people of color and all those kind of things.
Right.
But coming back to the point of the ambassador who tweeted whatever he tweeted, I can tell you for free, being a politician, I know ambassadors are political appointees, and he knows them. If he's not a career diplomat, he was just appointed because of the political goodwill. He knows that he has got no job, so he has to defend it in any manner. So I don't envy him for saying whatever he's saying. He's just trying to defend his boss, which is not right, because he's here to promote the ties between the two countries, but not individual ties between the countries. He's not here to defend the interest of Trump. He's here to defend the interest of America and to unite with Kenyans, and that is where he should be learning from. So it was quite unfortunate for him to say that, because at the end of the day, America is his country, and whoever leads America is his president.
Yes,
and
yes.
He show good sense, and maybe he can be reappointed again. But the moment he takes sides, it shows clearly that he is partisan. And if our Biden, he will be the first ambassador to fire.
Okay.
Because I would not want to have such an ambassador representing my country, which I am trying to bestow hopes to the people of that country and hopes to the people of the world, and one of my own is negating that spirit.
Okay, Honorable Odera.
I wish Joe Biden well and Kamala Harris. I hope they succeed. I think they are good for the U.S. and they are good for the world. And I think that good will come through in the course of their term. Kamala Harris made a comment in her maiden speech as a vice president-elect. She said she's the first woman of color to occupy that office. Yeah. She'll work to make sure she's not the last. Now, that's exciting. That should also encourage us, Kenyans, to work hard and build consensus and implement the 2/3 gender law in our country. Let's give our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, our nieces, our friends who are female a chance to offer what they have to offer in the leadership arena. Turning to the BBI, I think we should follow the lead created by especially the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi.
Okay.
And a lot of other voices have come up, said, let's build consensus. Let us have a referendum that is not contested. It can only be a good thing if we have a referendum that's not contested. We don't want division. We don't want too much expense in terms of getting that referendum passed. And those Kenyans of goodwill who are sober, let's step back and depoliticize the debate on the BBI process.
Yeah.
We must not kill a good child just because we don't like the father. Thank you.
Now, and I guess the thing that would unite those two elements is that the people's voice must be heard on whatever the issue. Now, we're going to take a break. That has been Honorable Joe Mutambo, ex-Mungi Central MP. Nakia White is an IR expert. Thank you very much. And Honorable Arthur Odera, who's ex-Teso North Member of Parliament. Thank you so much for your perspectives and adding to the discussion. Remember, you can continue on Twitter. Do you think Donald Trump should concede defeat? That is the question of the day. I'm Trix Ingaro, and the hashtag to use is KTN Morning Express. Let's take a break.